Okay, in this video we're going to be taking you through everything that can possibly go wrong with these, what they're like to live with and drive on a daily basis, what they cost to own and operate, and as tempting as they are, we're going to tell you if you should or shouldn't buy one. Let's bloody do this. Okay, now just in case you're new to the whole Mitsubishi Ralliart Lancer thing, this is basically the Liam Hemsworth of Lancers. See, at the top of the family you have Chris Hemsworth, played by the Lancer Evo 10, celebrated, respected, all muscle and performance. At the other end of the spectrum you have the Luke Hemsworth of Lancers, which is basically just the rest of the standard Lancer range. What I mean is a little bit rough around the edges, often overlooked, not quite as attractive, nowhere near as fit, but does a good job. I should mention as well, we've done an entire full review of the Luke Hemsworth Lancer range, and the link for those videos, or that video, is just up there. But back to this, in the middle you have the Liam Hemsworth of Lancers, played by the Ralliart. See, it's the younger upstart with a dedicated fan base. It still offers an excellent performance. It's nearly as fit and powerful as Chris, and widely regarded by those in the know as a hugely underrated and great value performer. But back to the Ralliart, unlike any of the Hemsworths, these were built in Japan from 2008 to 2015. They're available as a sedan or a hatch, or a sportback as Mitsubishi call it. They feature the same engine as the Evo 10, just detuned thanks to both software and hardware, and ostensibly the same all-wheel drive system, just simplified. But the big news with the Ralliart is that it received a 6-speed dual-clutch transmission as standard. There's not even an option for a manual. Now, this transmission is widely regarded as the Ralliart's Achilles heel, but we're going to be delving deeper into the mechanical issues a little bit later in the video. Now, I just need to explain something. Here in New South Wales, new drivers, or P-platers as we call them, there are rules on what cars are allowed to drive. Generally, it's based around a power-to-weight ratio thing. But even though this is an all-wheel drive turbocharged rally-inspired performance car, they just sneak into the cars that P-platers are allowed to drive. Plus, with the full-fat Evo 10s asking anywhere from $35 to even $80, even $90,000, the Ralliart seems to offer, at least on paper, almost all of the Evo kind of experience and performance driving for often tens of thousands of dollars less. These things, they kick off from as low as $11,000 and top out at kind of the mid-30s. But if you are a new driver and this is potentially your first serious car purchase, it is critical that you don't make any stupid financial decisions. Otherwise, you might be paying way too much or get yourself in a really bad financial situation. So to stop any of that bad stuff happening, simply hit the driver link down there or go to ReDriven.com, check out the Ralliart cheat sheet, and go to the driver-powered car finance calculator. So with Driver, you can choose which finance package best suits you. There are no hidden fees, and you can get pre-approval in just minutes. Plus, if you finance your car through that link, you're going to get a free $150 fuel voucher. Now, there's a potential drama that we really need to talk about here, and it's the fact that these are fast, they're affordable, and they're very popular with youths, and that often equates to crash. So it's really, really important that you check out the entire car for any signs of crash damage. Even worse, dodgy repair work. In fact, it is critical that you go and watch our Ultimate Used Car Buyer's Guide video before you even think about buying one of these, because it could really save you from some serious financial heartache. Actually, speaking about things that are critical to do, you've got to fit not only one of these, but any car that you own with some WiperTech wiper blades. Guys, hit the WiperTech link down there to get 15% off. They're super easy to order online. They're going to be express shipped to your door for free via that link. They're super easy to fit, and they're going to wipe your windscreen better than my foot can wipe this leaf. Okay, now something I really love about these, when they're modified properly, like Daniel, the legend that has lent us this one, has done with his, it takes a serious Lancer anorak to be able to tell the difference between one of these and a full-fat Evo 10. Really, to anyone, this looks like an Evo 10. It just adds to the brilliant value for money that these seem to offer. However, not everyone is like Daniel, and some people modify these horribly badly. They can look like an utter shit show, and you shouldn't buy one of those because it's just embarrassing. Also, with the Sportback model, I don't know about you guys, but there's just something that doesn't grab me about those. I know it makes sense from a practicality standpoint, but from certain angles, it looks a bit like a sprained ankle. Okay, so here's another area where the right modifications can make all of the difference in the world, but the wrong modifications can completely ruin the car. First of all, look, you got to remember, it is based on a budget-friendly Lancer car, so don't expect any luxury. There's loads of hard, scratchy plastics everywhere, lots of gloss black plastic that's probably going to scratch up, and the fabrics and stuff, we're not talking an Audi or a Mercedes here, so just be cool with that. But the thing is, so many Ralliarts on the used market, they have been modified, and sometimes modified extensively. Now look, express yourself however you want, but the problem is some of these, it feels like rather than spending like $500 on one really quality item, like a really good head unit, some owners have gone and spent $500 on just like a cupboard full of the worst and cheapest tiny little trinkets and modifications. You could almost say that it's safe to assume that if someone's going to spend money on like one quality item, you'd like to think that the entire car has been cared for in the same kind of way. Money and quality has been spent on it. But if someone's just going to throw a whole bunch of cheap shit all over the place, well, maybe that's how the car's been treated. But look, back to the car at hand here. Ergonomics wise, really good. Like, I wish it did have the Recaros from the Evo 10, that would be super comfy, but it's still not a bad driving position. The steering wheel doesn't telescope in and out. I wish it was a little bit closer to me, but that's being very, very picky. Besides that, yeah, it feels like a Lancer. Now, wear and tear on this particular car, actually pretty good. I was expecting all of this gloss black plastic to be really, really scratched up, because generally it does scratch up, but in this car, no, it's actually in good nick. The fabric's quite nice still, door cards feel good. You've lost a bit of texture here on the steering wheel, that's to be expected. Also on the, it's not a shifter, it's just a gear selector. So yeah, a bit of texture's gone there, but overall wear and tear for the age and kilometres, good. Obviously, like, the levels of wear and tear are going to vary depending on the car you look at, but when you get in, just make sure like there's nothing too loose and dodgy feeling. And then when it comes to practicality up front, you've got a little storage bin here, you've got two cup holders just here, you've got a power outlet here, tiny little storage hole there, spot that can you fit a phone there? No, not really. Maybe an old Nokia 3210, but not an iPhone or anything modern. Good sized door bins, nowhere for your sunglasses, pretty decent sized glove box there. I think that's it for practicality. Okay, now in the back seat, I'm exactly 11 centimeters taller than another performance focused Lancer that also copped some flack, Lance Armstrong. This is in my driving position, and it's quite good. So knees are just touching the back of the seat, decent amount of foot-room. The seats are really comfy. Like, the squidge is good. I'm kind of like sinking into it like an old lounge chair. You know, it's fine. It's super comfy back here. It's good. Wear and tear? None. I don't think anyone's ever actually sat back here. It's in perfect condition. And practicality in the back seat, Uno map pocket, couple of door bins in the doors there, and a pull-down armrest with two cup holders. Now in the boot of the Lancer, like all good Lancers, there's a subwoofer. But let's ask the sub, how much room's back there? How much room's back there? In all seriousness, it's actually quite spacious back there. With the Sportback, but a mate of mine who's a bass player in about 1 million different bands, he has a Sportback, one of these. The amount of space in that thing, it's like a station wagon. I know from experience that you can get his full bass rig in, my full drum kit, most of a PA, and both of us in the front seats, and drive all around the countryside doing gigs together. It's quite spacious. Okay, here's another area where the Ralliart could be maybe thought of as something of a blank canvas rather than a fully finished car, because in standard form, the tech and features leave a little bit to be desired. And look, fair enough, because when these were new, like, real phone connectivity was in its infancy, so forget anything like Apple CarPlay or Android Auto fitted as standard. Bluetooth was fitted with these, or in these from 2010 onwards, but the good news is there are so many options available for like infotainment systems and kits to fit them. Daniel has fitted an aftermarket Sony head unit with this one, but we've also seen like total fascia replacements where the screen kind of integrates into the air conditioning vents, and it looks pretty much like a standard fitment, and it also really updates the overall look of the interior. It makes it look far more modern than it is. Big tip, but spend money and get a high quality infotainment system. Any of the cheap ones off like eBay or Alibaba, any of that stuff, honestly, they're going to be more trouble than they're worth. Get a Sony or a Kenwood or something, a good brand name one. But look, it's not all bad news when it comes to the tech and features. As you can see, Mitsubishi did upgrade the tech almost year on year. Although, even in saying that, some of that tech fitted these days, it is really starting to feel its age. Now, on top of the tech, you still get all the standard stuff that you'd expect, like climate control, remote central locking with a proximity key, rain sensing wipers, power everything like windows and mirrors. But for the full list and everything else, jump on ReDriven.com and check out that cheat sheet. It's all listed there. Now, as far as safety goes, look, these are all-wheel drive, so they feel like they're glued to the road pretty much all of the time, until physics wins. The problem is, physics will always win, and that generally happens when these are traveling at a terrifying speed. So what happens then? Now look, I know you guys really want to know just what the engine and transmission are like, and we'll get to that in a second, but let's answer a few questions first.
Okay, it's a modified performance car from a decade ago. How's the suspension?
So I honestly thought that this thing would have like a similar ride quality to an old BMX, but it's actually really good. It's on stock suspension, and okay, it is firm, but it's not uncomfortably firm at all. And handling wise, it's great. Like there's no pitching and rolling. It sits so flat through corners at really any speed. But yeah, it's mainly the ride quality I'm impressed with. Like here's some bumps. Yeah, firm, but not uncomfortable.
Evo Lancers have always been renowned for their driving enjoyment. Does the Ralliart also deliver the goods?
Well, yes. Like the steering is excellent. Heaps of communication, really direct, feels great in the hands. And also because of its size, like it's small, so it always feels nimble. Look, I'll go as far as saying it pretty much feels like an Evo most of the time until you really, really get pushing it or you start thinking about changing gears.
Now, Mitsubishis generally haven't been renowned for their engine sounds, but how's the Ralliart when it comes to the audible stuff?
Well, look, engine-wise with this intake and exhaust system, okay, it might not be as musical sounding as like say an Abarth 595 or even like a Hyundai i30N, but it does have its own kind of characteristic note. It's almost along the lines of like a bit of a crazy old man just screaming abuse at you, like rah, rah. But one thing that's really surprised me is the lack of rattles in here. When you read through the owners groups, there are plenty of owners that complain about really rattly interiors, but this one, like there are no rattles, there are no weird sounds or squeaks. I thought it'd be, you know, a drawer of cutlery, but it's not. It sounds good.
Now, finally, answer the big question.
How's the engine?
Okay, the engine in this, absolutely brilliant. Like not only is the power delivery like really linear, like, but it bloody goes. It's a perfect amount of performance as well. It's not like, Jesus, what is going on? It's just really engaging and involving. Love this engine. I've always loved these engines. And this one with the mods on it, yeah, bloody fantastic. It's so nice. Like, feeds on nicely. Oh, such a great engine. But there's a negative to this engine, and that's fuel consumption. Even in like standard mode when you're driving around like a grandma, it's not great on consumption. If you up it for the rent, my God, we've seen figures of anywhere from 13 up to even 16 and 17 litres per 100 Ks.
Okay, the car's Achilles heel. Is the dual clutch as bad as everyone says?
Well, simply no, but can be yes. So when these are in standard form, there are two modes, like normal and sport, but you can reflash them to have a third mode, which is S Sport. That's the same as on the dual clutch Evo 10 models. But according to those in the know, you really should do that software update. See, S Sport, it is more enjoyable to drive. It's more aggressive, it's more involving and engaging. But at the same time, that update also sorts out some of the idiosyncrasies with normal and sport mode. See, one of the problems with this transmission is one of the first incarnations of a dual clutch transmission in a production car, and early on they were really clunky around town, really hesitant, but the update tends to fix a bit of that up. Plus, when you're driving in auto mode, without the update, the clutch packs can get really hot because they grind against each other to try to make the shift smooth. But again, the update seems to fix a bit of that. Actually, just expanding on driving in auto mode, loads of the experts that we spoke to recommended that you don't drive it in auto mode, that you still shift gears yourself, because that will hopefully stop those clutch packs grinding together, creating heat and all sorts of dramas. And actually, just on the whole shifting gears yourself thing, obviously you've got the paddles. Everybody loves using the paddles. The thing that no one talks about that I think is massively underrated, the actual shifter down here, finally a car where the shifting pattern is going in the right direction. If you want to shift down a gear, you push forward. If you want to shift up a gear, you pull back. Exactly like 90s British touring cars or even kind of current rally cars. That's how it should be. Love that. But what is using the gearbox like? Well, once you're up to speed or having like an enthusiastic go, excellent. Super rapid shifts, really, really enjoyable. But around town at slow speeds, even with the update, look, it's not perfect. It does the job okay. It's nowhere near as refined or sorted as like modern dual clutch transmissions. 2 seconds, hang on. It's so good. But as you're about to see, to keep these things running as they should, maintenance is absolutely critical. So look, if you want one of these things no matter what and you're happy to ignore some of life's serious realities, maybe skip this entire section of the video. For the rest of you, let's get into what goes wrong with these and start with the exterior. Okay, so first up, the paint. If these aren't garaged or polished or cared for properly, the paint can fade. And also the paint's quite soft, so it chips and scratches pretty easily. Okay, next up, the keyless entry can have some dramas. Basically, the key doesn't like being near any magnetic fields. Even like your mobile phone, it can cause all sorts of havoc. There has been an update and a new key available, but yeah, just keep the old ones away from magnets. Get away. Now, there are some reports that the tail lights, the standard tail lights, not these ones, these are aftermarket, the standard tail lights can weirdly get really hot. Even on the standard model Lancers, there are reports that they've caught fire. Also, if the Ralliart that you're looking at has any modifications, make sure they are quality modifications and have been fitted professionally, just like Daniel's here. Also, if the Ralliart you're looking at has like a big stupid wing, not like this one, that's an actual Evo wing, but you know, the ridiculous ones, they make no difference. If anything, they just add to drag. Unless those stupid wings have been tested with like CFD or a wind tunnel, yeah, they're just not good. And also make sure that they've been, if you want one with a dumb wing, make sure it's been attached properly, because if it hasn't been bolted in properly, it can cause rust and corrosion throughout the boot. I hate those wings. Okay, now inside, what goes wrong? Well, firstly, the biggest complaint from the owners groups are rattles. All of this hard plastic, great for wear and tear, but over the lifespan of the car, that plastic becomes brittle. Brittle plastic rattles, and that might send you insane. Now, some models from 2011 on, they can have like partial leather seating. Some of that leather, but if it's not cared for, if it's exposed to too much UV, it can get really hard and brittle and even crack. Now, at this age, the air conditioning, it might need regassing, but worst case scenario, it might need the blower or the fan to be replaced. The problem is, to do that is very labor intensive, and that will add up in cost. Also with the interiors, look, if it does have modifications or any kind of accessories fitted, please make sure they all work. You'd be amazed how many people will go and buy a car with buttons and shit everywhere and none of it actually works. Okay, now, here we go. Mechanically, what can go wrong with the Lancer Ralliart? I can't tell you because I'm not a qualified mechanic, but Jim is.
Now, this is one of those engines, the 4B11T, where you don't have to look too far to find out all of the terrible catastrophic engine failures that they suffer when they're modified. The reality is, in standard unmodified form, they are actually extremely reliable. The earlier versions around 2012, they did have some issues with stretching timing chains and some guide issues. Now, if that hasn't been fixed already, that's a pretty straightforward fix. About $1,000 to $1,500 will fix that. But after then, really no problems at all. They had it completely sorted. The MyVec system, that's Mitsubishi's variable cam timing arrangement. Occasionally you see some solenoid complications, but not very common. But other things like turbo complications, cooling systems and oil leaks, they are pretty much on par with everything else from Japan about that age. So basically, yeah, pretty reliable. The ABS control module, that's the ABS pump basically, that's a pretty common failure point. Now in Australia, to get a brand new one from Mitsubishi, it's about $3,000. Or at least it would be if you could get them, because it seems like they're indefinitely on back order. You can have them repaired in some cases and it can cost about half that. Another way to fix it is to put it in a second-hand one. Now the thing with the second-hand ones is you have to match the part numbers exactly, because there's a few different kinds. And because it's a common problem, second-hand ones are a little bit hard to find, so it could be the expensive new one. Now the transmissions in these, now as Adam alluded to, they are known for being somewhat unreliable. Now there is a bunch of things that go wrong with these, and one of those issues is overheating and clutch slipping. Now they have two internal wet clutches, and by design, when they're in normal mode, the transmission, to facilitate smooth shifting, it allows a little bit of clutch slip. Now that clutch slip can actually generate heat, and when it generates too much heat, you get internal seal problems, which allows more clutch slipping, which allows more heat, and more heat makes more clutch slipping issues, which generates more heat, and then and it's more of a problem when the vehicle is driven predominantly at slow speeds in normal mode. Driven enthusiastically in sport mode, well, there's less slipping and less overheating. One strategy to help with this could be just leaving it in sport mode and driving enthusiastically everywhere, or you could just fit a decent oil cooler, which can definitely help. They also have a problem with the selector fork position sensors. Basically what happens there is the glue fails and the magnet falls off the sensor. And when that happens, it just doesn't select gears, or it only selects 1, 3, and 5. And there's a whole bunch of problems can arise from that. Pretty common problem. And the mechatronics unit, that's basically the part that does all the moving of those selectors. That is prone to some pretty expensive complications too. Servicing on these is recommended every 105,000 Ks. Now, that is just madness. You're better off doing it at least every 50. And a pro tip with these is using the genuine Mitsubishi oil and replacing the external filter as well. Now, when it does all go terribly wrong, the dealership might suggest that the only way to fix it is to put in a whole new transmission. Don't do it. There are plenty of aftermarket parts available and plenty of repairers that specialise in this thing. They can be repaired and they can also be upgraded to make them more reliable.
Now look, we need to say a massive thank you firstly to Daniel, the legend that lent us his car. Mate, thank you so much. Secondly, Lancer Ralliart owners groups. Talk of legends, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for all of your insight and information and knowledge. Couldn't have made this video without you. Thirdly, thank you. Guys, ReDriven amazingly has become one of the fastest growing automotive channels on YouTube here in Australia. And it's because of you. It's because of your support and subscribing. Guys, with so many of you subscribing, it means that we can make bigger and better and more videos. And honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so, so much. Okay, look, we so want to say yes because on paper, like, what an awesome car. And if you can find one of the unicorn models out there, just like Daniel's here, that has a faultless history, has clearly been loved and cared for, and most importantly, has had the transmission serviced at least every 30,000 Ks, if not more, it's a cautious yes, buy one. But guys, be prepared. You are going to be working on it and tinkering with it all of the time. It's not a Corolla. It does need some care and attention. But unfortunately for the majority of Ralliarts on the used market, no, don't buy one. See, even for examples where owners have serviced the car on schedule, Mitsubishi dramatically underestimated just how regularly the transmission needs attention for it to last. Plus, unfortunately, many owners fail to maintain their Ralliarts to even Mitsubishi's recommendations, meaning while the rest of the car might be bulletproof, a poorly serviced transmission is simply a ticking time bomb. So that then leaves you with Ralliarts that have been really poorly modified, badly tuned, or just driven with absolutely no mechanical sympathy. And those ones, they should be avoided at all costs. So guys, has that scared you off the Ralliart, or are you determined to find a unicorn example like Daniel's here that is pretty much close to perfect? Or would you buy something completely different? Let us know in the comments down there, and we'll see you guys next time. Okay. But so with Driver, you can choose which finance package best suits you. Even worse, dodgy repair work. The right modifications can make all of the difference in the world, but the wrong. So, okay, now here we go. Mechanically, what can go wrong with a